Welcome to the Musar HaTorah podcast, where we explore ethical dimensions of the weekly Parsha. I'm your host, and today we're diving into Parshas Vayakhel through the profound teachings of Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sacks, Zecher Livracha, whose brilliant scholarship and ethical insights continue to illuminate our understanding of Torah. Parshas Vayakhel begins with a striking word, Vayakhel, and Moshe assembled the people. In his work, Covenant and Conversation, for Parshas Shmos, published in 2010, Rabbi Sacks points out the rarity of this term in the Torah. He writes, "The word Vayakhel, and he assembled, is rare in the Torah. In fact, with one exception, it appears only in Sefer Shmos, and there only in two contexts, the assembly of the people by Moshe after the Chet HaEgel, and the assembly at the beginning of our Parsha." This observation leads Rabbi Sacks to a profound insight about community in Judaism. He continues, Kehila, community, is fundamental to Judaism. It is not the priest who mediates between God and his people. Instead, the priests themselves are the emissaries of the people. In Judaism, holiness is not hierarchical. It does not reside in a person by virtue of their role or office. It is democratic and communal. What makes this insight particularly relevant to Parshas Vayakhel is the nature of the assembly itself. The people gathered to contribute to the building of the Mishkan. In his book, Lessons in Leadership from 2015, Rabbi Sacks describes this as effectively the first crowdsourced project in history. He elaborates, everyone who wanted to contribute was able to do so. Everyone who had the requisite skills was invited to do so. That is fundamentally what made the Mishkan different from the temples of other civilizations. It was not built by forced labor. It was not designed to glorify a ruler or demonstrate their power. It was a collective enterprise of the nation as a whole. This democratization of sacred space reflects a fundamental aspect of Jewish spirituality, the invitation for each person to participate directly in creating a dwelling place for the divine. In the Torah's description of the donations for the Mishkan, we find a particularly moving detail. And this is from Shemos Lamed Hey Pasuk Chaf Beis, where it says, "The men came with the women to bring their contributions." In his commentary on this pasuk, in Covenant and Conversation, Rabbi Sacks highlights the unusual nature of this phrasing. In most ancient societies, financial matters were handled exclusively by men. Yet here, the women are emphasized as primary participants as well. Another striking aspect of Parshas Vayakhel that Rabbi Sacks highlights is the overwhelming enthusiasm of the people. The Torah tells us they brought so many donations that Moshe eventually had to ask them to stop. In his essay collection, Essays on Ethics from 2016, Rabbi Sacks reflects on this enthusiasm. When we see ourselves as partners in the divine work of creation, even the smallest task becomes suffused with meaning. This is the difference between seeing ourselves as servants and seeing ourselves as partners. A servant obeys, a partner creates. This insight helps us understand why the people responded with such extraordinary generosity. They weren't merely following the commands, they were participating as partners in creating sacred space. Rabbi Joseph B. Soloveitchik, in his work Halachic Man from 1983, provides a complementary perspective on this creative partnership. He writes, "The most fundamental principle of all is that man should create himself. It is this idea that Judaism introduced into the world." In his essay, The Lonely Man of Faith, Rabbi Soloveitchik further elaborates on humanity's role as creator, explaining that the peak of religious ethical perfection to which Judaism aspires is man as a creator. The enthusiastic participation in building the Mishkan exemplifies this creative religious impulse that Rabbi Soloveitchik identifies as central to Jewish spiritual life. Rabbi Sacks, in Future Tense from 2009, reminds us that Judaism is the principled rejection of tragedy in the name of hope. The building of the Mishkan after the Chet HaEgel represents exactly this, turning from tragedy to hope through collective action. May we all find ways to build our communities with the same enthusiasm and dedication shown by our ancestors in Parshas Vayakhel. The Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Nachum Mendel Schneerson, Zecher Levracha, in Likutei Sichos, offers profound insight about the name of the Parsha as well. He notes that Vayakhel doesn't just mean gathering people physically, but also unifying them spiritually. He wrote, the word kahal, assembly, applies a unity so complete that the many become as one. This unity, he explains, is a prerequisite for bringing the Shekhinah into our midst, just as it was for building the Mishkan. Before we conclude today's episode, let's consider a practical application from Rabbi Sachs's teachings on Vayakhel. In his work to heal a fractured world from 2005, Rabbi Sachs writes, community is where our humanity is tested and where we discover who we truly are. This week, find a communal project, something that, like the Mishkan, requires collective effort, and participate with wholehearted enthusiasm. Notice how contributing to something larger than yourself enhances your own sense of meaning and purpose. This has been the Musar Torah podcast. Thank you for joining us as we explored Parshas Vayakhel through the teachings of Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs, Zecher Levracha, and many other Jewish scholars. May their collective wisdom continue to inspire us to build sacred spaces in our communities and in our hearts. Until next time, have a good Shabbos.